The Rachel Hollis podcast is proudly sponsored by Amica Insurance. As Amica says, empathy is our best policy. That's why they'll go above and beyond to tailor your insurance coverage to best fit your needs. Whether you're on the road, at home, or traveling along life's journey, their friendly and knowledgeable representatives will work with you to ensure that you have the right coverage in place. Amica will provide you with peace of mind. Go to amica.com to get a quote today. The New Balance 1080 is the ultimate daily trainer, combining reliable comfort and top-tier performance. I live in my sneakers. I use them to walk around the block, to run around my neighborhood, and to get all the chores done in a day that I need to as a working mom. So whether you're logging miles or running errands, the 1080 seamlessly transitions from the coffee shop to the grocery store, to the podcast studio, or wherever else you've got to get things done. The New Balance 1080 features a cushioned midsole for secure support and comfort, while the totally lightweight, breathable mesh upper keeps your feet cool and fresh on every run. Shop the 1080 at newbalance.com. I think the biggest pain point in narcissistic relationships is it just makes you think that you're crazy. Even trying to explain that to you is pretty hard. And it wasn't until I started researching, because I was like, I don't understand how I have more than one person in my life who has done very similar things to me, and I didn't understand what it was. And I just kept researching, and finally through time, this personality just showed up again and again and again. And I was like, oh my God, that's what it is. And I can see how that has shaped certain behaviors that I have. Even, I'm being super honest, I have paused this podcast episode probably 50 times to catch my breath, to ground myself, to say a prayer, because even having a conversation about this makes me feel afraid. Hi, I'm Rachel, and in this show, we talk about everything. Life and work, health and healing, relationships with others and with ourselves. These are stories for the seekers. These are conversations for the curious. This is the Rachel Hollis Podcast. Hey guys, it's Rach. Welcome back to the show and a conversation just in time for Valentine's Day. So we noticed something really interesting recently, and it has informed today's episode. We started doing these episodes called Friday Faves, where every Friday we are re-airing one of our most popular podcasts of all time. We decided to do that because there are so many new listeners who've come into the mix because of the new book. Thanks for being here, guys. But if you are new, there's a really strong chance you're not going to scroll back for 400 episodes and find the best of. So we thought we'd bring it to you. We reshared a podcast interview I did with an expert on covert passive-aggressive narcissism. Now, narcissism is a really popular topic, but with covert narcissism and passive-aggressive narcissism, it takes on a life of its own. What we were shocked to discover is that podcast episode continues to be one of our most popular ever, even in a reshare. And to us, that says that narcissism or recovering from narcissistic relationships is something that a lot of people in our community can identify with. And it makes sense to me because narcissists don't just show up in romantic love. They also show up as parents. They show up as bosses or coworkers or best friends or big sisters. And if you are starting to get curious about whether or not someone in your life might have these tendencies, or maybe you know for a fact that someone has these tendencies, this conversation might be for you. because it's Valentine's Day, I thought it might be interesting to flip the script. Because let's be real, not all relationships are fairy tales. And some of those relationships, whether they're romantic or not, can leave us questioning what we were taught to believe about love and about ourselves and about our worth. So today, you and I are going to talk about narcissistic relationships and how they slowly chip away at our confidence. They can erode our identity and our ability to trust in ourselves. And I think the hardest part about these kinds of relationships is that many people don't realize they're inside of one or that they grew up with one. Narcissistic relationships don't always start with obvious red flags. And in fact, if you know anything about them, they often begin with lots of charm, with something called love bombing and intense connection. This feeling that, oh my gosh, like I found this person, they just get me on every level. That sort of emotional erosion can creep in so gradually that by the time you realize what's going on, it can feel impossible to untangle yourself from it. If you've ever felt like you're walking on eggshells in a relationship or you're questioning your own reality, if you find yourself feeling like, wait, am I thought that I understood what this was, but when I confronted this person, everything flipped and now I'm questioning myself. If you feel like you are way too much, or maybe you're not enough inside of a relationship, this episode is for you. I want to talk about recovering from narcissistic relationships and how to get your confidence back, how to get yourself back after you come out the other side. So today, we're diving into 7 ways narcissistic relationships erode our confidence, and more importantly, how to take our power back. All right. Before I dive into this, I think it's worth giving a little backstory here to explain my unique perspective on this conversation. I don't say unique as in my perspective is better than anyone else's. I just mean what is my exact path that brings me here to this conversation. I have experienced narcissists in more than one area of my life. And I have lived with that manipulation and that emotional control for a long time in more than one area with more than one person, which tracks, honestly, because if you study narcissism at all, you find that it's very easy to become a target for a specific type of personality. All of that to say, beyond my own personal experience with narcissistic abuse, I have interviewed several experts on the show who specialize in it because it was something that I found so interesting and I thought you guys might too. So I'm bringing my own experience mixed with what I have learned from doctors over the years and my own therapists in the hope that it will help you with wherever you find yourself today. But I think what's most important for this conversation is to talk about how narcissistic abuse shows up and what it does to us. Because I did not understand what was happening in any of these scenarios until I looked back in hindsight. I thought that the behavior was normal because it was all I had ever known. And when I was approaching the subject today, what I wanted to bring to the conversation was those signs that I didn't recognize as a child, those signs that I didn't recognize as a teenager, that I didn't recognize as an adult. Man, if I had realized what was happening, it would have set off alarm bells. And at the very least, I would have found a therapist. I would have found someone that I could trust to talk about this with. So I want to start with how these relationships show up, at least how they did with me. And then if you find yourself in them, how you can reclaim yourself. Okay, the first thing that I thought of that happens inside of narcissistic relationships is criticism and gaslighting. Now, I hope that if you're interested in this at all, you will read books on it by people who are much smarter than I am. Dr. Ramani is a great, incredible resource for this. She has a YouTube channel, so much information on what it looks like. But in my experience, gaslighting was the most predominant type of manipulation that I encountered. And gaslighting, I had never even heard that word until a coworker of mine in like 2020 said something. I was explaining to him something that was going on, and he was like, wow, that is gaslighting if I've ever heard it. And I legit had never heard that word before, so I didn't know what it meant. In case that's you, let me walk you through what gaslighting is. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation, meaning that someone is truly messing with your perception of how you're thinking, and they do it to make you doubt your own thoughts. They make you doubt your memories. They make you doubt your perceptions. It's a tactic that is often used by narcissists to gain control over you. And it usually starts in really small ways and grows to the point that you really don't know what is true anymore. And this all sounds, as I'm saying it, so dramatic unless you've been inside of it. And if you've been inside of it, I know you're sitting there right now nodding your head because you know what this feels like. But here are some examples of gaslighting in action. The first one is denial. So you confront your mama, your daddy, your sister, your husband because they said something hurtful. It hurt your feelings. You were listening to my podcast, you're listening to someone else's, you wanted to set an emotional boundary, and you're like, it really hurt my feelings when you said that. And they deny what you know is true. So like, I never said that. I didn't tell you that you were overweight. I don't know what you were talking about. Or they'll slightly adjust it. So they'll say, well, all I said was that I'm worried about your health. I didn't say that you were fat. I said I was worried about your health. And you're like, wait, no, that's not what you said. But they have so much conviction in what they are saying that you back down and you start to question, God, did I read that wrong? Or in my case, the thing I always thought, because it was what I was always told, was like, you're so dramatic. You're so dramatic. You blow things out of proportion. That's not what I said. That's not what happened. And it makes you question yourself. The other way gaslighting shows up is they trivialize your feelings. So if you express that you're frustrated or sad or something happened, they twist it. So they say, oh, in my case, oh, you're so dramatic, or you're overreacting, or you're being so sensitive. Why are you so sensitive? And in doing that, they don't acknowledge your feelings at all. They don't acknowledge what you said. They twist it immediately and make it something else. One of the biggest signs, I think, of gaslighting is when you come to someone with a piece of information from your perspective, and then all of a sudden you're in a conversation about something completely different. That is the best example I can give you of you come to someone and you say, hey, I'm concerned about this, or this hurt my feelings, or I really want to talk about this thing. I want to talk about letter A. And then all of a sudden you're in a disagreement about letter P. You are in a completely different area. They've sidetracked you way off base. And by the way, chances are that letter P is about something you did wrong. So you've confronted them about an issue between the two of you, and they will find a way to twist it and talk about something you did wrong. So now you're defending yourself when really you were just trying to have a conversation. Another form of gaslighting is rewriting history. They will twist past experiences, and suddenly they're a victim in the relationship. The last form of gaslighting is shifting blame. So this is when you call out their behavior and they turn it back on you. You know, if you weren't so difficult, I wouldn't act this way. If you weren't always nagging me, then I wouldn't drink so much. If you didn't work so much, then I wouldn't party so hard. Like, they flip what you're saying and make it your fault. If you are someone who doesn't do well inside of conflict, which if you are a target for a narcissist, You probably are someone who doesn't like conflict. The effect of gaslighting is that over time, you stop bringing problems. You stop voicing your concern. You doubt your ability to remember things correctly or make good decisions or even feel justified in your emotions. So it keeps you in a state of confusion. And if you're like me, you shut down. So anytime you run into conflict, you know that you're not going to be able to get a word in edgewise and you're not going to be able to say what you're thinking or feeling. So you shut down everything that you are, go into a little tiny box so that you don't get attacked. Gaslighting is a real issue. And I did not know what it even meant until 5 or 6 years ago. So I just wanted to tell you guys that in case you hadn't heard that term either. Celebrate your love story with a Valentine's Day surprise from Pandora Jewelry. I love having jewelry that helps me commemorate special times in my life. I have at least 5 bracelets on at all times that represent gifts from my kids or from my husband. And this Valentine's Day, let your heart guide you to the perfect gift. With Pandora, you can choose styles full of sparkle, heartwarming symbols, or different choices that help you capture every moment of your life together. Make the feeling last and make it personalized with an engraving or engravable jewelry. You can even use your own handwriting, guys. On Valentine's Day and every day, be love. Shop Pandora Jewelry today in store or online at pandora.net. Coming into the new year, it was time for a big reset for our family. We had so much fun over the holidays and we indulged in sugar and all the stuff we normally wouldn't have, which is why I love coming back into a routine with Thrive Market. Thrive Market lets you easily find trusted, family-friendly brands and shop based on your needs. So things like low sugar or gluten-free, organic or high protein, you can filter them without the hassle of grocery store trips. Plus, with the Healthy Swap scanner in the app, you can scan a product you already buy and get instant recommendations for cleaner, healthier alternatives. Ready for a junk-free start to 2025? Head to thrivemarket.com/Rach and you'll get 30% off your first order plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/Rach. thrivemarket.com/Rach. The second way that narcissists and narcissistic relationships erode your sense of self is emotional manipulation as a way to control you. Narcissists thrive on making you doubt yourself. So they love guilt or the silent treatment to manipulate your emotions. And that makes you feel really unstable and also sort of dependent on their approval. So if it's hot and cold with a narcissist, like if your parents would only show you affection in certain situations and then completely ignore you in others, that's emotional manipulation. That is teaching you that there's a certain way of behaving that will get you their love. And if you don't show up in that way, then you're not welcome or you're not going to be loved or we're not going to acknowledge you. And that, if you have it as a child, creates an adult that is so unsure of herself and doesn't know the right decision to make because she's constantly trying to please everyone around her. It starts when you're little with, oh, I got to please daddy or, oh, I got to please mama. And if you're still in that frame of mind at 20 or 30 or 40, it means that now you're trying to please everyone and you feel totally insecure and totally unsure. Be really mindful of any relationship in your life that is volatile. Even if it's super great and awesome, and then 2 weeks later, it might be absolute crap, you need to be aware that that is a major red flag. If the best times you've had in your relationship in the last 5 years were when you were on vacation, when it was your birthday, when it was Valentine's Day, when it was some big moment where they actually showed up and did everything that you hoped and were exactly who you hoped they would be. And then a week later, they're mad at you again. That is not a healthy relationship. A healthy relationship is supposed to be steady and consistent. A healthy relationship does not withhold love. A healthy relationship does not manipulate you emotionally. So be really mindful, because every single person I know that is recovering from romantic narcissistic abuse, when they are talking about the relationship, they're like, yeah, but he was so awesome sometimes. And he would do everything he could to change. Like when I said that we were going to break up, then like he would do everything and he would be so amazing for like 3 weeks and then it would all happen again. Be really mindful of volatile relationships. Yes, every relationship is going to go through hard seasons, but it is not supposed to be constantly up and down. The third thing that narcissists do that really erodes our sense of confidence is they undermine your independence. Either subtly or not subtly, they discourage your ambition. They discourage your friendships. They discourage your personal goals. They make you feel like you are incapable of thriving on your own. Ladies, look, I know that many of us come from very traditional backgrounds, that if you are inside of a heterosexual relationship and you come from a traditional background, there are certain ideas about the role that the woman is supposed to play and the role that the man is supposed to play. And also inside of same-sex couples, this happens as well. I understand. But if we're going to hang out together and we're going to be friends, then I would be not a good friend if I didn't tell you that I think it is incredibly dangerous to be completely dependent on another human being. I don't care how amazing your partner is. I don't think that anybody, man or woman, should be completely financially, emotionally, spiritually dependent on another human being. You are supposed to be an individual coming into a relationship with another individual. You should be terrified of anyone who wants you to be dependent on them. That should be like the biggest red flag on the planet. And I know a narcissist tendencies, there's someone in my life that I watched do this from person to person to person. And every time they got in a relationship, they did everything that they could to make the person they were in a relationship with financially dependent on them. And nothing made this person more fearful than their partner wanting even the smallest amount of independence. And they would use emotional manipulation every time to get their partner to feel really nervous about wanting to do anything on their own. Well, why do you need a job? I make plenty of money. I make enough money to support us. Do you not trust me to support us? Do you not think that I'm man enough to take care of our family? Like, they would use this emotional manipulation to make their girlfriend, to make their wife, to make every single person they dated feel like it was somehow bad if they wanted to make their own money. That is their journey to walk. That's their journey to walk. But I am telling you right now, it is such a huge red flag. I am still seeing this person do this today. I'm like, there it goes again. Oh, did you immediately move this person into your home? Did you immediately make that choice? Yes, because the insecurity, because let's be very clear, narcissists are wildly insecure. They will never admit it, but that's why they need to control other people, is because they don't have confidence in themselves. But be very mindful of anyone that doesn't want you to have friends, that doesn't want you to see your family, that doesn't want you to do things that you used to do. That should scare the absolute crap out of you. If your partner is strong and confident in themselves, they're not trying to control your life. In fact, would you want to be with a partner who would want someone who doesn't want to be financially independent? Major, major, major red flag. Number 4, another way that narcissists make us lack confidence in ourselves is they create environments where we feel like we have to walk on eggshells or where we have to shrink ourselves. Y'all, I have been asked this question so many times over the years. I have probably been asked thousands of times by people how they can feel more confident in themselves when their partner does not like their ambition, when their partner doesn't like their clothes, when their partner doesn't like how loud they are, when they're like, it's always people asking, how can I be better so that he gets it? Like, how can I do things differently so she likes me for who I am? The problem is not you. The problem is you in a relationship with someone who makes you hyper aware of their moods, their reactions, and their behavior so that you avoid conflict. Over time, it's teaching you that who you are and the way you feel doesn't matter. Oh my gosh, those of us who grew up in a home with a narcissist know this so well. We grew up as little kids constantly like having our feelers out to make sure we were all safe. Like, am I doing it right? Is everyone happy? If I'm not performing in the way that I need to be, am I okay? And it stands to reason that you might go from that environment as a child to go to that relationship with your boss or to go to that relationship with your marriage. You were taught that in order to receive love, you needed to make yourself into a certain person or behave a certain way. The 5th way that narcissists erode our confidence in ourselves, OMG, this one is so good. Taking credit for your success and blaming you for their failures. Ooh, this one makes all the hair on my arms stand up. Do you have a parent, a partner, a boss, a friend, a sibling who downplays your accomplishments while taking credit for your ideas or effort? Or let's flip it. Do you have someone in your life who, when they mess up, it's somehow your fault? The dynamic makes you feel powerless. And as a little kid, I remember this, like having a parent absolutely explode in the worst possible ways, but then blame us as kids. Well, if you didn't leave your toys, I wouldn't be screaming. Like absolutely verbal abuse, emotional abuse, acting in ways that were terrifying to little kids, but then blaming it on the kids. Or have you ever had a boss that continually takes credit for the things that you did? Meanwhile, they're downplaying anything that you do, but then taking credit for it in other spaces. The other mind screw with this one is if you have someone who doesn't believe in you, who you have been shrinking yourself to try and fit, to get their support, to get their approval. You've been doing all of these things, and then you finally experience success. And then they take credit for the success that they were bashing you for trying to achieve. Listeners, NerdWallet wants you to let them do the work for you. Looking for auto insurance? The Nerds will match you with top providers in your area in just a few questions. So getting the right rate for you is as simple as going to nerdwallet.com. After all, letting NerdWallet do the work is more than smart. It's genius. Not all applicants will qualify for the lowest monthly payments. NerdWallet Insurance Services Incorporated. California resident license number OK92033.
Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you, you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/credit card based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
I think the biggest pain point in narcissistic relationships is it just makes you think that you're crazy. Even trying to explain that to you is pretty hard. And it wasn't until I started researching, because I was like, I don't understand how I have more than one person in my life who has done very similar things to me, and I didn't understand what it was, and I just kept researching, and finally through time this personality just showed up again and again and again, and I was like, oh my God, that's what it is. And I can see how that has shaped certain behaviors that I have. Even, I'm being super honest, I have paused this podcast episode probably 50 times to catch my breath, to ground myself, to say a prayer, because even having a conversation about this makes me feel afraid. And I'm realizing in real time, like, oh my God, because I have been taught from the youngest age that you're not supposed to talk about this and you're not supposed to complain, because I have seen again and again and again, and I don't know if this will resonate with any of you, but so many times I would try and ask for help, or I would try and explain to people what was going on, and they would be like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? He's the greatest ever. And then I would not only have the person who was doing this, but I would also have everyone in our lives. And then I would go, okay, I guess I'm crazy. I guess I'm making things up. I guess. And now I'm like, oh my God. If there had been as many conversations years ago about this topic as there are today, I think I would have figured it out a lot faster. At the very least, I would have had some support of myself by myself to question things, to just not accept that everybody in our lives only wants the best for us. Because when someone is emotionally unwell, which if you're a narcissist, you are not emotionally well, you are making decisions. Like, I can give enough grace to see you're making decisions that probably feel like life or death to you. Truly. It feels that necessary to control and manipulate other people because that's how your ego is staying intact. You've got to keep up the facade. You've got to keep up the belief that everyone has in you. And you will do anything and everything in your power to ensure that that happens. So I can totally give the myriad of narcissists I have met in the course of my life, I'll give them that. I get it. You're on that journey. But I would have had more guts to push back on a lot of things if I had understood this back then. The next thing that happens inside of these relationships is they isolate you from support systems. So they often discourage or even sabotage relationships you have with friends or family. I know someone whose wife sabotaged him going to therapy because as he started going to therapy, the therapist started to encourage him to question a lot of the behavior that was happening, and the wife didn't like that. So she came up with reasons why the therapist was wrong and bad, and, you know, oh, that therapist probably isn't a Christian, like we're a Christian, and so they're giving you bad advice, and it was just so toxic and scary in retrospect. But they want you to feel alone, and they want you to feel completely dependent upon them. Without an outside perspective, their toxic behavior is going to be harder for you to recognize because it's just all around you all the time. You don't understand what's happening. This isn't, I want to add another beat in here. This isn't one of the numbers on my list because I wanted to talk about how these relationships kill our confidence. But another element that I think is a huge, huge, huge factor with narcissists that I didn't understand is with a narcissist, everything is about them. It's all about them at all times. If you are in a relationship with a narcissist, you are something that they own. To a narcissist, their children are something that they own. To a narcissist, their wife, their husband, their girlfriend, that is theirs. They own that thing. Everything is about them at all times. And to reemphasize the point that everything is about them, one of the things that I remember talking with Debbie Mirza about in the Covert Narcissist episode was how they tend to sabotage moments that are about you. So you've worked really hard for something, or it's your birthday, or it's the anniversary of something painful in your life, and they find a way to make that day about them. They will sabotage the experience because they don't want anything to be about anybody else. It needs to be about them at all times. It's just reinforcing this idea that who you are, what you believe, what you think, what you care about will always be second to everything that they want and need and desire. The seventh way that a narcissist can affect your confidence is making you believe that you are too much or not enough. They tell you you're too sensitive, you're too needy, you're too difficult, you're not smart enough, you're not attractive enough, you're not capable enough, you'd never survive out here on your own. I can't imagine how you would do it without me here. They are conditioning you to make you doubt your own instincts and your own desires. That is their whole aim. That is what they are trying to do, is to make you doubt yourself. If you're loud, you're too loud. If you're quiet, you're too quiet. If you have any insecurity, narcissists are incredible at homing in on the insecurity you have and continuing to sort of push that button, put a little salt in that wound until it becomes a full-blown issue in your life that they're the only one that has the antidote to. So if they know that you're insecure about your weight, maybe they keep talking about your weight. They keep talking about your health. They keep pointing out that person's thinner, that person, look at those abs. But then they simultaneously are like, but I love your booty, but I love your belly, but I love you the way you are. I'm the only one that can see how beautiful you are. Everyone else doesn't think you look good, but I think you look good. We just talked a lot of crap about narcissists, which feels fair because they're usually very terrible people. But that's not the point of today's episode. Today's episode was, I hope, maybe gave you a little like, oh crap, like that's the relationship I have with my mother-in-law. Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I'm experiencing with my sister. If something I said today resonated with you, see that as your sign to go read up. Like I said, there's so many amazing books written by doctors on this topic. My favorite is Dr. Ramani. Go check her out. Because I'm not a doctor. I'm just your friend Rach telling you what I've experienced. But here's where I do have some thoughts. If you are on the other side of one of these relationships, you have to actively work to rebuild your confidence in yourself. How in the world do you rebuild your self-belief when someone has been eroding it for years? Or perhaps more than one person? Because most of us who've experienced this have experienced it more than once, unfortunately. I feel like I've got some really good ideas for how to do exactly that. And I will start by saying this. I did not realize it when I was writing the new book, but if there's a central theme in the new book, it's you meeting you. It's you learning who you are without anyone else telling you who you are. It is you reconnecting with who you were before you went through this relationship. Every single thing in What If You Were the Answer is about asking you questions that help you figure out your answers. It's kind of how it's worked with every book that I've written, that I don't really understand what I'm writing until it's over. But when I look back over this, I realize this was me healing from narcissistic relationships. This was the questions I should have asked myself. This is the questions I wish that someone in my life had asked me to help me figure out what was going on in every area of my life. So if you're not familiar with the new book, it's What If You Are the Answer and 26 other questions that just might change your life, because it is 26 questions. Each chapter is a deep dive into a question that I wish I had known to ask myself. So for instance, if you think of a romantic relationship with someone who is unhealthy, one of the questions in the book is, would you sign up for this again? Would you sign up for this again? Knowing what you know now about this person, about your boss, your wife, your boyfriend, your bestie, whoever you thought of when I was talking about the narcissist, knowing everything you know today, if for the very first time you were going on a date with them, or you were applying for a job with them, or you were joining the club with them for the very first time, but you know everything you know about them, would you do it again? If your answer is not absolutely, what are you doing? Even scarier, if I ask you, would you sign up for this again? And you're like, oh my God, absolutely not. Then why are you still in the relationship right now? Sometimes we stay because we have kids. Sometimes we stay because we don't know where we're going to get another job. Sometimes we stay because we don't want to hurt that person. Sometimes we stay because we're scared of how they will react if we leave. But if you hear that question, would you sign up for this again? And you say no, you need to have some real conversations with yourself. I say it again and again in the book. You don't have to do anything once you have an answer to the question. It is enough to start with knowing the answer to the question. Okay, here's another one from the book. One of the chapters starts with, what big thing is actually little? What's something that you're making a huge deal of, but it actually isn't that big a deal? And then the following chapter asks, what little thing is actually big? This feels especially relevant, and I do talk about it in this chapter, with relationships where you keep excusing someone's behavior, where something in your gut is telling you, this is not okay. This is not right. I didn't like when she said that to me. I didn't like when he talked to my mom that way. I didn't like when he told me I couldn't see my friends. I didn't like that, but I didn't want to say anything. What little thing is actually big? What are you not giving enough credit to? What are you not making a big deal about because you've been taught not to? Another chapter asks the question, who would you be without your fear? I am positive that someone has made it this far in this podcast episode, knowing with every fiber of their being they're inside of a relationship that is deeply unhealthy, but they are terrified to leave. They're terrified of what the other people at church will say. They're terrified of what it might do to their children. They're terrified of how the narcissist will react. And their fear keeps them stuck. And their fear is slowly eroding their life force. Again, you don't have to take action just because you know the answer. But I wrote this book because my instinct said that many people were avoiding answering the question. Just start by answering the questions. What are these things that you're not looking at that you should be? Your intuition, which is the heart of this book, your intuition, this God-given ability that you have for discernment, it's screaming at you. It's screaming at you. There is no way that you've listened to 45 minutes of a conversation about narcissistic abuse if you aren't experiencing that somewhere in your life. You don't have to take action, but you do need to know what's going on. You do need to have a real, honest, unfiltered conversation with that still small voice inside of you that has been trying to guide you. And I'm curious, for those of you resonating with what I'm saying, that maybe you know something's wrong, but you're not doing anything about it, which parts of your body are shutting down? Seriously. I don't mean to ask that in such a harsh way, but I wish someone would have said that to me 15 years ago. Hey, what weird medical anomalies are you experiencing that make absolutely no sense and no doctor can explain why they're there, but it's your body shutting down because you are not listening to your intuition? Because that's what happens. Our intuition screams and screams and screams, and when we keep ignoring it, our body's like, okay, well, let's get chronic fatigue. Let's get intense back pain. Let's get this. Let's get that. Let's get the other thing. Let's get some totally unexplained medical situation because maybe that will get her attention. You do not have to take action, but you do need to know the answers for the questions that are whispering in your heart. The new book takes a deep dive into a lot of questions that I think could be super helpful. If you are interested, you don't have to buy it. Go grab it at the library, borrow it from your sister. If you do want to buy it, you can get it anywhere books are sold, or if you like the sound of my voice, you can get the audiobook on Audible. But I think if this conversation resonated with you, that there are some questions in that book that might be helpful to ask yourself. It's also super helpful to surround yourself with people who see you and celebrate you. If you are on the other side of one of these relationships, join a club that the narcissist would never have been a part of. Join it as fast as you can. Find the thing that she would have hated or daddy would have made fun of. Go join it as fast as you can. Find other people who are into what you're into so that you feel like you can be yourself. Set firm boundaries and protect your energy. I have saved narcissists in my phone as a gray rock. If you've never heard that term, gray rock is a behavior that you can do when you are forced to interact with narcissists and you don't want to. There's lots of reasons we might be forced to interact with a narcissist, but doctors will say, have the personality and the interaction of a gray rock. Say yes, say no, don't get into debates, don't be dramatic, don't be emotional, because a narcissist knows exactly how to manipulate you into feeling certain emotions. And the easiest way to keep them from doing that is to not give them anything to manipulate. So I literally have saved people in my phone, and the picture of them is a gray rock. It just reminds me how to interact. And it's a boundary that I set for self-protection. If you are on the other side of one of these relationships, or maybe you're in the middle of one of these relationships, please, please, please find a therapist. Find coaching, find people who specialize in healing from this very specific kind of abuse, because there is something so awful about being in a relationship where you feel like you're going crazy and you start to tell yourself that you're crazy because also the person telling you that you're crazy, and you just don't know what to believe anymore, it's so debilitating. So please, please, please find therapists that specialize in this and get help from someone that you trust. The last thing I'd love to just say to anybody who finds themselves in this situation is not to make this a Goodwill Hunting moment, but this is not your fault. This is not your fault. This person is unwell. And that doesn't mean that we excuse their behavior, because lots of people are emotionally or mentally unwell and they don't hurt other people, and narcissists often do. We can hold space for the fact that they are unwell and still know that it was not right. But you did not do anything to bring this on yourself. It has happened. And if it has happened, the only thing you can decide to do now is something better than what you've done in the past. Is how are you going to move through and move on after going through something this hard? It is a process. You don't snap your fingers and, oh, you're out of the relationship and suddenly everything's fine. Or, oh, I quit that job and suddenly everything's fine. No, you have to do some healing and you have to do some work, or you will accidentally find yourself in the exact same situation with a different person. It sucks, but if we don't learn from our past, we will repeat it. This is not your fault. You did not choose for this to happen to you, but you must choose where you go from here. I hope that something I said today was helpful. If you know someone who might be in a situation like this and you think this conversation would be helpful for them too, please consider sharing it with them. And just know, guys, it sucks sometimes. And it's hard. And it's hard to find yourself and to get your groove back. But there is hope. There absolutely is hope on the other side of it. And there's so many resources now for the things that you can do to get to a place where you're feeling better and doing better. So please don't just stay here and stay stuck. Love you guys, and I'm rooting for you.
The Rachel Hollis podcast is produced by me, Rachel Hollis. It's edited by Andrew Weller and Jack Noble.
Surprise bill? Need fast funds? CashNet USA can help. When you need money fast, be the hero.
Apply in minutes at cashnetusa.com and get a fast decision. All loans subject to lender approval. Speed of funding is subject to verifications and your bank's processing times.
Okay, business leaders, are you here to play or are you playing to win? If you're in it to win, meet your next MVP, NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is your full business management system in one convenient suite. With NetSuite, you're running your accounting, your finance, your HR, your e-commerce, and more, all from your online dashboard. Upgrade your playbook and make the switch to NetSuite, the #1 cloud ERP.
Get the CFO's guide to AI and machine learning at netsuite.com/podcast25. netsuite.com/podcast25.